Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If this is the first time you are visiting my channel, make sure to hit that red subscribe button and do check out my other videos on this channel. Today I am going to talk about very important concept in programming called functions. In the last video we created a very simple guessing game. However, there was something wrong with this code. Here you can see we repeat the same statement to take a guess from the user 3 times. This looks a little bit weird. Let's say we wanted to change this prompt to guess a number instead of enter your guess. In that case, we have to make changes to 3 locations. That's a little bit awkward. If we forget to change at one of those locations, it doesn't look good for the user who is playing our game. Also, in programming, it's generally bad practice to repeat the same statement multiple times. When you do so, it creates bad code or smelly code. There is a programming principle, DRY, which means don't repeat yourself. And here we are violating that principle. To avoid that, most programming languages provide some construct. In Python, we have functions, which are collection of statements wrapped inside a block. To define a function, we use def keyword. Basically, defining a function means telling Python compiler that this section of code is special and it should be recognized with a special name. After the def keyword, write the function name. Let's define very simple greet function. After this, we should use pair of parentheses. This is required and we will see shortly why do we need this. We need to put colon, which denotes a code block in Python. The statements after the colon should be indented, and IDEs like Visual Studio Code automatically indents the code after the colon symbol. Let's write simple comment here, simple function to print hello. In Python, we can write comment using this pound symbol or hash symbol. Comments are basically notes to yourself or other developers in your team. We can write plain English in the comments. Let's write greeting as hello there and let's print it. And that's it. This creates a very simple Python function. Now to use this function, we can use this name of the function followed by the pair of parentheses. This is called invoking a function or calling a function or executing a function. Now, if we execute this code, we get hello there. If we invoke this function 2 more times, then we get hello there 3 times. Now, this was a very simple example. Let's say you want to greet someone, you could replace hello there with hello Peter or hello Aishwarya. These functions can also take some arguments. Remember, our print function takes argument and whatever we pass to the print function gets printed. Similarly, we can pass name as argument. For that, we just have to write name inside the pair of parentheses and then we can use this name variable inside the function. So that's the use of pair of parentheses. We can write using formatted string hello name. Now if we execute this function, we have to provide some name to it. If we don't, then we get error in Python. This is another type of error. Here it says greet missing one required positional argument name. Make sure to always read this error and try to figure out what's the problem. Because in real life, you will have to read this and understand what those errors mean. You will definitely come across errors in one or another way in your professional career. Let's provide some name. Let's provide Thomas, and now if I execute, I will get hello Thomas. This is reusable piece of code. Say we want to greet Peter, we call this same function and we just change the argument to Peter, and let's also call Aishwarya. Now if we execute, it greets all 3 of them. Let's clear out the console. You could clear the console in Windows using CLS, or if you're using Mac or Linux, you could use clear command. Let's create another function add, which will add two numbers. Def add, provide num1 and num2 as arguments, and let's print the result of this addition. Let's call this function by providing 2 and 3 as arguments. When we call this function, it assigns the argument in sequence. So number 2 is assigned to the argument num1, and number 3 is assigned to the argument num2, which is the second argument. Let's execute this Python file and we get back 5. Now functions can also return values. One important point in Python functions is that functions by default return none value. None is a special value in Python. It means absence of any value. In other programming languages, it's called null. If we wrap our function call inside this print function, we can print the value returned by the add function. So let's try that and execute the code, and we print not only 5, but we also print none, which is returned by the function call. Until now, we have only printed the result on the console, but there may be many scenarios where you don't want to print the result, but just want to calculate something and pass it to another function. You could return those calculated values to the function call using return keyword. So let's replace this print statement with return so that it will return the sum of num1 and num2. Now if we run this, it doesn't print anything because we have removed this print statement. If we wanted to print, we could wrap our function call inside the print function, and now it prints. So this function call actually gets the value returned by the function, and we could also assign the value of this function call to some other variable. So let's assign this value of addition to a variable sum, and then let's print sum, and we get back 5 again. Let's create simple calculator to understand the functions little better. Let's create new file simplecalculator.py, and let's create basic mathematical functions inside this file. Let's start by creating functions for 4 major mathematical operations. Def add num1 num2, and it's going to return the num1 plus num2. Let me copy this same piece of code for subtract, multiplication and division, and then just change the name of the function to subtract, and let's change the operation sign multiply, and let's change the return value to multiplication of num1 and num2. Let's change the last function to divide, and it's going to return the value returned by the division of num1 by num2. Let's write simple prompts to give information to the user how they can work with this calculator. Print simple calculator. Let's add some spaces here. So let's print dashes as well as one extra line. And then let's print one line, choose one of these operations. Print add for addition of two numbers. Print sub for subtractions of two numbers. Print mul for multiplication of two numbers. Print div for division of two numbers. Next, let's take user input for operation and let's save it in a variable user input. User input, and let's assign the value of input provided by the user. Input, enter the operation you want to perform. Now we have to check the operation. If operation is add, we execute the add function. If it's sub, we execute the subtract function, and so on. Before that, we also have to take the numbers we want to add or subtract. we can create a separate function to take user input as an integer. So let's create one. Let's define it right below the divide function. Ideally, in Python files, functions should be defined before they are invoked. So if we want to invoke it here, it should be defined before this line. Def get input number, num is equal to int input, enter a number, and this will return integer value. So let's return that integer value, return num. Let's check for each operation in the if-else blocks. If user asks for addition, let's get two numbers by calling this get input number function and save the first number into num1 and the second number into num2. Now we want to invoke add function, but we should also make sure to save the result of addition, as we will be printing the result at the end of this if-else blocks. So let's declare a variable before this if-else block as result. Now this variable declaration is not necessary in Python. We will talk about this in the next lesson on variable scope, but for the moment let's use this. Let's assign add operations result to this variable inside the if block. Let's copy paste this block, as all mathematical operations will have similar structure. Let's change the second one to sub. Let's call subtraction function here. Third one to mul, and change this function call to multiplication. Fourth one is going to be div, and the function call is going to be divide. Also make sure all these if blocks will be elif instead of if blocks. At the end, add else block in case user enters some other operation which is not supported. Let's print incorrect input. Please choose one of the operations. Now we want to print the same message as we did earlier. Either type the same code here, or we could make another function with these instructions inside it, and then we can simply invoke that function. I think second option is much better. So let's cut this code and make a new function, def menu, and paste the same code here. Let's invoke this function at the beginning and inside this else block. At the end, let's write a print statement which says result equal to string. Let's execute the code. Let's use subtraction sub. First number 5, second number is going to be 3, and we get back 2 as a result. There is also possibility to extract out this to user input, where user provides two inputs for the mathematical operation, but for that we have to pass two numbers from the function. At the moment we don't know how we can do that, but let's check it out. So we could copy this user input logic into a separate function, def get two numbers, and just paste it over here. We have to return two numbers. In other programming languages, you would have to construct object or something else, but in Python you can easily do this like this. Here just return num1, num2, and inside this if block change this to num1, num2 equals get two numbers. I have changed on the add block only, but you could change it to all of these if blocks. Let's execute again. Let's choose add this time. Enter first number as 2, second number as 3, and we get back 5. Python also offers named arguments for functions. When declaring a function, we can specify argument value by using their names. Let's go back to main.py file and create simple function calculate to perform mathematical operations. This function can take 3 arguments, number 1, number 2, and the operation we want to perform. It will check which operation did we ask for, and accordingly it will perform some action. Def calculate, num1 op for operation, num2. Now we can check for the operation. If op equals plus, return num1 plus num2. Elif op equals minus, return num1 minus num2. Elif op equals multiplication, return num1 multiplied by num2. Elif op equals division, calculate num1 divided by num2 and return that. Let's ignore the case where user specifies something else than these 4 operations. We can execute this function by calling function along with variable names. So calculate num1 equals 2, op equals plus, num2 equals 3. Let's wrap it inside the print function so that it prints the result. And let's execute it. And now we get the result 5. We can also change the sequence of these function arguments. So we can call calculate num1 equals 5, num2 equals 2, and op equals minus. Even if we provide arguments in different order from what we had defined in the function definition, this will still work because it checks this name when assigning the variable values inside the function local arguments. We could also specify the default values to these variables. That means we don't have to provide these arguments explicitly. If we don't specify any values for these arguments, it will take the default values. So if we define num1 and num2 with default argument of 1, now if we call calculate with only operation value as plus, we get back an error saying that non-default arguments follow the default arguments. Here you have to ensure that the required arguments must be specified before the optional arguments in the function declaration. So if we make operation as the first argument, and now if I execute the function again, I get back 2. We could also specify num1 and operation and leave num2 as the default value of 1. And if we execute, it still works. That was a very long video lesson. If you had any trouble following it, watch it again because this is very important concept in programming. I hope this video was informative for you and was able to clarify the concept of functions in Python. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching this video. I will see you in the next video.